What's going on, everybody? Joe here with Excursion Cuts. If you caught my last video, I mentioned devoting the next few posts to a series of videos that's geared towards color correction and color grading. I've got a link to the color correction video in the description below if you'd like to get caught up. But basically what we've done here is we've applied some technical adjustments to our footage to balance it out, to increase the contrast, make sure that our white balance is basically where it needs to be, and expand the tonal range so that we can apply some stylistic color treatment to it. This is where things get very subjective. This is where it's more about art than science. There are no hard and fast rules here. There are some general guidelines, and I'll be covering those as we move along, but our ultimate goal here is to use color to convey meaning or tone in our scene. At the end of the day, we want to use color to get our audience to feel a certain way, to invoke emotion. We tend to associate certain colors with certain emotions. Emphasis on the word tend. It would be inaccurate to say that certain colors correlate to certain emotions or situations. So for example, one could assert that cool colors such as blue, cyan, and green are associated with cold, dangerous, tense scenes such as in the horror genre. It could also be argued that warm colors such as red, orange, or yellow would be useful in conveying love, happiness, joy, or contentment. I think what many of us need to consider is the role that previous Hollywood films play in this association. Sometimes a certain look is used in a particular film and it just works. It conveys the exact meaning the filmmakers were going for, and because it works so well, it subsequently gets used as if that color palette was designed for that particular genre or mood. For example, the bleach bypass look, which is basically a high contrast, punchy grade with muted colors, meaning low saturation, that was used in Saving Private Ryan. It had a really gritty look that seemed to really fit the situation of chaos, fear, and impending doom. And what ended up happening was subsequent films ended up using a similar grade for similar situations. HBO had a show called Band of Brothers, another World War II story, used a similar grade. But this doesn't necessarily mean that bleach bypass works only to convey fear, chaos, and impending doom. We're going to talk a lot about color and how it can influence your shot, but I first want to provide some tips on what to consider when selecting a color palette. We'll build on this over the next few videos, but here's the first thing I think about when I'm assembling my color scheme. How is the setting of my scene going to influence my grade? What I mean by that is this. Is this grade going to make sense in the scene? Where's the scene set? Is it an interior? Is it an exterior? I have here an exterior shot that was filmed in winter, and although there isn't any snow on the ground, it is snowing. In fact, if I scrub through here, you can see the snow is falling from the sky. So if I push my color temperature towards warmer colors, that may not make a whole lot of sense with this shot. It's winter. I may be going for a happy, joyful type video, but this just doesn't make sense. So again, when I grade, the first thing I consider is the setting of my scene. I want to make sure the color temperatures make sense for the scene. Same thing is true with exposure. If I were shooting a night scene in downtown LA back in the day of fluorescent lighting, I might push things in the direction of subtle green. Warming up those shots, even though LA is hot as balls 11 months out of the year, wouldn't actually make sense. I recently caught a video in which the colorist was discussing the movie Black Hawk Down, and he made a really good point in his example, which was dealing with the grade that was used in the battle scenes in that movie. The outdoor, chaotic, horrific, terror-filled scenes were very warm. Mind you, a lot of times we associate those warm tones with, happiness and joy. But in this case, there was a lot of yellows, a lot of oranges, a lot of reds, and this was due to its setting. It was set in the desert with life-threatening heat. Cool colors just wouldn't have made any sense. Conversely, in the scenes in which the characters had sought safe haven in old buildings at night, they weren't in any immediate danger. They could unwind, they could relax, lick their wounds. The color palette there was very cool. Lots of blues, lots of greens. So what am I trying to convey here? I want the audience to feel somewhat mesmerized with the snow, and the fact that this was, shot at 120 frames per second is going to do a lot for that. I am trying to convey a certain degree of happiness and, contentment in the shot, but I think I'm going to be going with cool colors. So I'm actually going to take the blue of my shadow area, the shadows wheel over here. I'm going to push it a little bit towards blue. I'll cool it off just a little bit here. I'm going to try not to add any warm colors. If I were to, boost the saturation right now, it would do a global, increase to the water and to the trees. But you can actually adjust color on a specific bases. So if I come over here, I can actually brighten up the cyan colors, which will pool water. And I can do the same thing with its saturation. A little bit more color into the cyans. And now I've already kind of tweaked this a little bit on the trees. Here's the thing with green. You might think that with foliage and trees that boosting the saturation on the green is what's going to bring out the colors, but you'll probably find that foliage actually lies more with yellow than anything else. So you'd actually bring this up. I'm going to exaggerate this so you guys can see it, what this is doing to the trees in the background. Now that looks fake, but just so you guys get the idea, you'll probably want to boost your yellows a little bit and push those yellows a little bit closer to green. Saturated colors usually get associated with happiness or safety, and even though this scene is very cool, it doesn't mean I can't increase saturation in certain colors. Alright everyone, we'll add to this next week. I hope this gave you something to think about. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified when I release more content. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. I'll see you next week.